All right. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Media Munchers. I'm Mathian,
And I'm Adrian.
and we're finally going to talk about something that's a little new. We got Star Wars Visions to talk about.
Yeah.
My take on it was that it's essentially, it's not fair to call it a what if, but it kind of feels like that. It's like, what if like
Right. It's
the Japanese market and studios had a spin on Star Wars, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what it is. Because I've noticed they take liberties with certain like plot building things or like world building things. We'll
Mhm.
get into it in the review.
Yeah. It's
but
not really deep in
it's
the or not the mythology,
no,
but
it's not true.
it's not part of the timeline.
It's not canon,
Yeah,
right?
canon.
None of this
that's
is
right.
canon, right?
I don't
To my
think- I
knowledge,
wouldn't
none of
think
it is.
would be.
That's why I say it's more of
Yeah.
like a what if spin on things. It's like,
Right,
well,
right,
like
right.
this is their interpretation of the universe, and they're gonna throw their tropes and their culture on it, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, this is I think they segregated into legacy. Is that what? Because I remember when Disney bought Star Wars, they had defined what was canon and what wasn't.
Oh,
and
really?
Whatever wasn't, which were like a bunch of the books from the past and the games and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Those were labeled as like legacy or something.
Right.
I think.
So probably. I actually
So
don't know.
yeah, I think those.
I don't know the
would
specific
fall
term,
under.
but this probably falls under that.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's interesting to see, just a new spin on things, and we get a lot of that with episode 1. And obviously it's a clever homage to samurai films of old, and it's literally black and white. It
Yeah.
seems grainy, but still it's still very very 4K or whatever. It's still, like really high resolution.
Yeah, it's really interesting animation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I noticed the style changes because I think, if I'm not mistaken, every episode is a different studio or something like that.
Oh, is it, or is it
Um,
all the same studio, different artists?
That might be more accurate.
Yeah.
I'll double check. I think it's
Okay.
that, but for sure the style changes regardless if it's the same studio or not. Like every
Right.
little art style changes.
Yeah,
in
and I
every
think
episode.
that's really cool.
It is super cool,
aspect.
and it's very predominant in this one
Yeah.
because we have little pockets of like color, like we have blue, green, red, all of it, and it all is very important to the story, depending on who's on screen or what's on screen. I mean, you
Right.
could go like night and day with the color theory and like how blue represents neutral, and, red obviously Sith and whatever.
Right.
But it starts out with the Imperial stormtroopers showing up in a village, antagonizing people, blah 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 blah, and we have like here we go, the simple wanderer, who's revealed to be a master Ronin. How familiar are you with that title?
Ronin.
Yeah.
Ronin is a samurai who has no master.
Yeah.
So if they deviate from their clan.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Exactly. And so that literally follows here.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, he apparently was a Sith, like a student of the dark
Yeah.
force. I don't. It's not called that, but I'm trying to say
Yeah,
here.
the dark side.
Dark side. There you go.
go.
And he kind of breaks away for whatever reason, and it doesn't really matter because that was the twist in and of itself when we find out when he's fighting Umbrella Lady.
Right. The other Sith.
The other Sith.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, okay. You're also Sith. That's
yeah,
interesting."
it's funny how they didn't really like give them names. Or at
not
least,
really.
like have them.
It's not like prevalent. It's not
yeah,
not really.
it's not prevalent.
It doesn't matter because like what matters is the action.
Right,
And they
of
get into
course.
it, right? They get into it, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens. I think the craziest thing to me is, like, again, taking liberties, is how he stopped the lightsaber with his hands. I guess using the
Oh, yeah,
force.
yeah.
I mean, of course, it was a spectacle to behold, but I was like, what is going on here? Like, has that happened before? I don't think it's ever happened in anything that's canon, has it?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I know they used a lot of the force in the prequels. and
Right.
that's where like I think it was most prevalent.
Mm-hmm. I think the
Um,
closest thing I've seen to that is didn't in the sequels someone stop like a blaster? Didn't like a
Yeah.
Was it,
the first one?
was it Kylo Ren?
Yeah, he stopped it midair.
Yeah, that was
But
trippy.
he didn't like. It wasn't
He
like
didn't hold it though.
Yeah,
it was just like stop.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and then the fight goes on. He has this whole thing cooking. He's like, by the time this water boils or whatever, send my droid out, and like he does all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff. That whole switcheroo and under the waterfall with like the prop holding
right,
the
right.
lightsaber and him like faking out that lady and beating her. That was cool too.
Yeah.
But this whole episode for me just kind of served as like, and I think a lot of these do, is just like fan service. It's just like what if,
Right.
and but not in the sense that Marvel's what if. In like here's another take on it, and it doesn't really build to anything. Where I think that's the difference between this and Marvel's what if. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is just a fun like creative exercise
Mhm.
in culture and lore.
Right, using the same kind of characters that you
yeah.
would find in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, like my brother was calling out all kinds of droids and stuff flying through the sky, and I was like,
Yeah.
awesome. You're a bigger nerd than me. We should get you on the podcast. So it was really beautiful. That was a really pleasing episode. Any other final thoughts on that episode 1? But it was
Um,
one of the stronger ones, even though we've only seen 2 so far.
yeah, it was definitely. No, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I would have liked for this animation in particular to have a bit higher contrast, because
Right.
at times some of the images did seem kind of hard to tell, like how hard to make out
Mhm.
what was there.
Of course. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, yeah. it
One
was
thing I
great.
thought was interesting is that he was collecting, I believe they're called kyber crystals. Am I mistaken?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they are.
And he was just like, and then he like donated one to the kid in the
Yeah.
village. And I was like, I mean, that's kind of cool. But like, what is that the equivalent of? Like donating
Right.
gold? I mean, I feel like there's so many more uses for that than just, aesthetic. You know what I mean? Is that
Yeah.
kid going to grow up and become some
Yeah.
sort of,
Well, it's funny because he gave it to him right after breaking the lightsaber.
yeah.
And that's maybe the one tool that he could.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what is a kid going to do with, I don't
Yeah.
know, a bullet and you broke the gun? Like, what? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But I guess the idea is that as a Jedi or whatever, you want to build your own lightsaber or something.
Yeah.
I think that's
It's like
part
an
of it.
honor thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
okay.
an
That
honor
I can circle back to. Okay,
Yeah.
I get that.
thing.
Well, let's roll over into episode 2 because I mean, obviously the art style's mixed up. It's more of a conventional anime aesthetic,
Mm-hmm.
and a
Yeah,
boy
very clean.
very clean,
Yeah.
like not messy, full color. Very very classic, conventional.
Yeah.
A boy called Jay happens to be part of a band. But Boba Fett shows up to capture one of the band members, and it turns out the guitar player Guy is actually from the Hutt family, which I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because at first I thought it was just a weird green blob alien. I didn't connect the two.
Right. Yeah.
I was like,
yeah. With the glasses, kind of made
it threw
a
me
little-
off.
Right. Those are glasses, or
I
those
think they're
his
supposed to be.
eyes?
Yeah, they're supposed to be glasses, like
Right.
spectacles or whatever. Yeah,
Okay.
looked like he was wearing shades at some point during like performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got glasses on. Anyway, and then Jabba has blood with him and sentenced him to death. And then thankfully they manage to slip away, and then they have their own little getaway. And then sure enough, Boba in his own ship falls from afar, knocks him out of the sky, and it's just this whole thing, right? And eventually, long story short, Guy gets captured when they figure out they can't outrun the bounty hunter, and basically the band like just spirals into a little bit of a depression,
Yeah.
And I was like, how are they gonna resolve this? I was like, because either I thought before I saw the ending, I was like, either they actually do find a way to break him out and they're just on the run for the rest of their lives, or no, he actually does get sentenced. And it's like just like a sad ending. I didn't know where they were going with it, and
Yeah.
I didn't picture the ending. I didn't picture that like they were like, no, we're gonna go perform for Jabba. We're gonna see what's up, and like
Yeah, I didn't quite see that either. Cause, well, the opening was him and he had his hair tied back like
he was
a Jedi,
younger,
right?
He was younger. Yeah. He was tied back like a
Okay.
Jedi. He seemed like
Yeah.
a year or two younger. Like it seemed like they had been together after that intro. They had been together as a band for like a year or two.
Oh,
That's
is that what it was?
speculation because
Or
they flash back and he looks way younger.
because I could have sworn it was jumping forward in time to when they're saving him. Was that not?
No,
it?
the way I understood it was that at the very beginning we see like this seemingly like maybe a Jedi pupil, like you said,
Mhm.
running away from I guess stormtroopers or whoever the bad is,
Yeah.
and he gets captured. He stumbles into Guy's like little workshop or band, if you would, and Guy
Oh,
looks
okay,
disapproving, and
okay.
he looks like he's gonna either turn him in or kill him.
Yeah.
But they end up forming a bond, and then end up forming a band, and then they change up their look a little bit, and they're performing, and that's a flashback. That's the way I understood it, because at the end,
okay.
when he's remembering all he loved about Guy and everything he appreciated about it, what he did for him, he flashes back to when he first met him, and like that brooding moment turned into, what are you doing? And like they dap each other up or whatever, and then they go form a
Right.
band.
Right. Okay.
That's the way I understood it.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that does make more sense.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know who he was.
Yes. And then they met.
Yeah. I thought maybe it had something to do because
Yeah. No, they
it
do a
being
lot
in
of.
a foreign language, it's kind of hard.
That's another funny thing I
I
should
did watch
mention.
it twice in order
Did you?
to try to.
Okay, because at first we were like, Damon was like, don't take the aesthetic away in the first episode,
Okay.
and we just let it play in Japanese. He's like, turn off
Mm.
subtitles. I don't want to ruin it. And I was like, yo, is this whole episode like is everything in Japanese? And I'm like, oh wait, and so we had to
Yeah,
rewind
yeah.
it and put subtitles.
Yeah,
on.
see that was something that I think on Disney Plus they need to change that. They need to.
You think you
like,
wanted them to
have-
dub it?
Well, no, but the subtitles I didn't like how it
How they
wasn't
looked?
automatically.
Oh, how it wasn't automatically
Uh,
already on?
Yeah,
or like burned in
set.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's because they're trying to go for a super wide appeal. If they burned in English subtitles and then like let's say I don't know a Spanish viewer who only spoke Spanish like had to watch
True.
Spanish, then the double subtitles would be
True.
not aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, that's true.
They have a
that's true.
huge market, so they got to be like
Yeah.
that's my only defense of that.
I wonder how accurate the subtitles are then.
I agree because
'Cause wouldn't it then be
like lost in translation a little bit.
possibly right?
Some of it yes, some of it no. I'm not a fluent Japanese speaker, but I do recognize.
either.
I watch a lot of anime, and so I recognize a few phrases. So
Yeah.
anyway, but I can't speak to how accurate they aren't. I would imagine they have like their best people on this though, so I
Yeah.
imagine it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, that's fair.
But long story short, Jay is like, they allowed us one more set, like, the biggest set ever before they execute you, which I'm like, that's a little morbid, but okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they went over the crowd, and then, which is a little out of character, Jabba the Hutt changes his mind. It was like,
Yeah, I did
kind of
feel.
hires them. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right, this is
This
definitely anime.
felt like more for kids in that way.
Of course.
Like,
I mean, a lot of Disney
Yeah.
stuff does, especially when it's anime. Which I think is another hurdle for them to try and clear, because I'm really torn. Like, a lot of the stuff is great. It's really great art, but I'm just like, I know you have to gear it to kids, to keep the views up. But it's just like, it would be nice if they had more like Teen Titans 2003, kind of like a younger adult kind of, I don't know, direction or audience intention. You know what I mean? I feel like it would benefit more from that. But I don't mind silly stuff. It's just like a little bit more realistic or grounded would be cool too at times,
Right, definitely.
So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that even Marvel has kind of had to
struggle
temper.
with. Yeah.
And I think they're now, at least with the movies, they're finding their balance a little more.
They are.
Yeah.
Because you could say something like Shang-Chi was still kind of like a very, I don't want to say safe, but it kind of was, like, especially with like the killing and his dark side. I'm like, I still don't believe it. Like, I didn't see any inkling of him being a bad guy. Like, the Disney still wants you to put their heroes in all black or all white, even though he was a gray character.
Yeah.
They
There was
still
no
presented more
There's no
of the
eternal
light.
struggle shown.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
talked about, and he gets a little teary-eyed at one moment, but they don't ever
Mhm.
show him actually doing questionable shit in the past, and that would have made for a more well-rounded perception of the character from the
Mhm.
audience perspective. I
Yeah,
feel
like showing that scene they were talking about.
yeah, that would have been super impactful, but
Yeah.
they skim right over that. I'm just like, I know there's only so much you can do in an origin movie, and I love how we got to that from this, but my point stands is just like, I know at the end of the day they have to put their flag in the ground somewhere, but it'd just be nice for them to like show that the world isn't all peaches and cream. Sometimes some bad stuff has to happen. So
Yeah.
but again, this isn't that deep in terms of like, a what if style show for Star Wars. Like, they're taking their own little liberties with it, and it was cute. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
music
it
was
definitely
cool.
was.
The music
Yeah.
was cool.
Yeah, it was
So,
good.
Yeah, so I can't wait to see the rest of them. Maybe we'll do another 2 for next week, and then after a small break, we're gonna run right into What If Episode 7. We are back from break, and we're gonna talk What If Episode 7, Party Thor Big Apple. This episode's much like Vision's episode 2, where it's a lot lighter than any previous episode, and it has more of a through line in terms of like what's going on in this universe and this little slice of life. And essentially, the whole premise is, what if like basically Odin gave back baby Loki to the Frost Giants, and Thor grew up as an only child,
Right.
which is intriguing on the surface. But I'm like, didn't the Frost Giants not want Loki in the Marvel universe? Isn't that what, like, something like that was the
Oh,
deal?
right, they abandoned
him, right?
Yeah, that's what it was.
But whatever, I guess in this universe, for whatever reason, they wanted him back and they lost him, whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right. And then so like Thor kind of just grows up to be like the spoiled only child, so to speak. You know what I mean? Not really having to fight for much, not really having to compete for anything. And it basically takes place during the same time period as our Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, what would that be like?
Like Thor 2011?
2011?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thor 1, kind of that time period. And so instead of Thor like just, crashing into like the desert out of exile, like he chooses to go with him and his homies, basically skip school while his dad's asleep, and come to Las Vegas and just party it up. And so we jump right into it. I love how Jane Foster and Darcy are still like in the desert, and they have to follow it and see what's going on, because like she knows about this. She tries to warn S.H.I.E.L.D. and no one gives a shit.
Right.
And we meet all kinds of characters. Like, so many people return, like Korg, like everybody, the whole Rogues Gallery, which is interesting. Like Korg's there, Surtur's there. I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah, a bunch of the Guardians
A
are there.
lot of the Guardians are there. Yeah, basically the whole roster. And I was like, damn, okay, like all of this just happened. Like everyone's just chill. I guess things turn out differently. And yeah, and so everyone's there, and there's a lot of funny fan servicey things going on, like Korg jumping into the pool. We found out later to hurt Fury and like knock him out into a coma.
Yeah.
One of my favorite highlights was Howard the Duck. Him and Darcy were hilarious. And I wanted to ask, I was like, we're seeing a lot of Howard the Duck in these what ifs. Like, do you think Marvel has grand plans for him in the live
the
action?
second time, right?
The second time.
I feel like they're probably using him because you could play with it.
And it doesn't really
better.
matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The medium serves him better.
I think I agree with that too. Because on second thought, I'm like, you know what? You could do anything with that character, and it doesn't really matter. Like
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna make a standalone
Yeah.
Howard the Duck movie.
I
anytime
you know,
soon.
I do think he works because he is kind of one of those characters, even in the comics,
Yeah,
where he just kind of pops up.
comic relief kind of.
Yeah.
Just here to not care and do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he does. His function serves well here, and it really adds to Darcy's. I can't believe they got married. I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting is that we're led to believe that the threat that Thor like poses to Earth is that he's gonna somehow end it. Because you know, like I think Jane Foster brings up research about how he partied on some other planet or comet, whatever Thor called it, and it blew up.
Right.
And he was like, "No, it was already like it was already gonna blow up. Not my fault." You know, very Rick and Morty. And
Yeah.
and then by the end of the episode, it turns into like what seems like a huge misdirect. It's just like, no, I just got to clean up because Jane told on me, and mommy's coming, and I just got to clean up Earth, which I get. Like he's wrecking Earth, but he's not like destroying it. Like it's not gonna blow up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There weren't very many stakes.
Yeah, it was just kind of like there's only stakes from the perspective of those who are being affected. So like Shield and like I guess Captain Marvel because she's trying to fight on our behalf, which is another thing I want to roll into because I thought it was interesting. They called her way earlier than on our timeline, sure, and it was fun to see her show up and kind of like for them to tussle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like the visuals are great, the fight was great. I love them knocking each other into different continents and like just checking
that was
out
cool.
like a who's who of like, hey, this is Earth, like just knocking from France to America or whatever. But it always goes whenever you put two characters like that against each other, you always have this like people like who's gonna win. But she had to hold back. She even says in the episode, or else like hella collateral damage would have happened.
Yeah, she could have blown up the whole world.
So, she could have easily if she wanted to, but at the very least destroyed a continent or two. You know what I mean?
Right.
Caused all kinds of tidal waves and all this destruction. I'm like, okay, what's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I wanted to know, why didn't she knock them into space? They could have fought wherever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it's not like
you're not bound to Earth.
Yeah.
It's just a planet. They can both fly and whatever. They just wanted to fight on Earth. Yeah. And then another thing too is you go to the who's stronger, and it's just like Thor's at the beginning of his powers. Or we're led to believe. You know what I mean? If this really takes place in
definitely
2011. He's like a baby when it comes to his powers. All he knows is how to swing a hammer.
He's definitely more immature, and that would
for sure
at least give him some liabilities.
Oh, for sure. I mean, who knows what he would have done? I think it would have been cooler if they took him to space and like they really duked it out. But it was a fun and light episode, so I think the whole thing was he just wanted to party.
Yeah.
Some small things I liked. I like the idea of Maria Hill being ready to nuke Thor. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Fury was ready to
nuke New York.
Well,
he didn't want to, but he was ready to.
Oh, that's true.
Because it was the council or whatever,
yeah.
like the shadowy FaceTime people.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, we're going to do it. And he was like, well, hold on now. I was like, let's not.
Yeah.
And then it went over his head and did it anyway. But that was a funny small thing. Another thing was that it was just like, I was sad that Idris Elba didn't come back because it was just a bunch of Heimdall grunting. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess he's never coming back because he died and he's like, all right, I'm good. No more work in the MCU.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, did was Chris Simmons?
Yeah.
Oh, he did voice.
Yeah, he did voice.
Okay.
Yeah, he voiced a lot of people.
I couldn't
quite
tell.
It seemed weird, right?
Yeah.
It seemed like it was like an imitation of Thor.
Almost.
And I was like, okay, well, if he's going for like a younger, more mature, brighter Thor, I guess it works. But it did sound like off. I didn't believe that it was him either. I was like, sounds weird.
Yeah.
You think it's? I don't know. What do you think it was? Do you think it was intentional, or do you think he's just not very familiar with voice acting?
Maybe both.
A little bit, right?
Yeah, like it was intentional,
but also he was going for a lighter, younger, more mature Thor.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked. It definitely worked. I did sound. I feel like his accent's been a little inconsistent over the years. Or I don't know. Maybe he's mellowed out because it was very Shakespearean, like in Thor 1.
Right.
And now he's just kind of
I know that was probably a creative thing that they toned down.
Like as it went on.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think it definitely was.
Yeah.
That. But it's just interesting to see. Okay, what are you going for? And it felt like a mend between the two. Felt like not as heightened, but definitely still, I don't know, strong. It was
even with the character itself, he felt very much like a bad mix of the old Thor and what we have with the
new
Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, and that's
type of comedy. Yeah,
you put it exactly in words. That's kind of what I was going for, and I was like, yeah, you said it. That's exactly what it feels like. And I was just like, all right. We'll see how it goes going forward. Which, speaking of that twist at the end, even the Watcher wasn't aware of that. He was like, hold on now. Ultron showing up with the Infinity Stones and Vision's body inside of Ultron. I was like, whoa, okay. They're doing some comic book stuff here. And I'm sure many people have covered this, but it's interesting how they're playing with the rules of what seems like the Infinity Stones in this universe, because it was my understanding that like you have a set of Infinity Stones and they only work in one universe. So if this Ultron, Vision, whatever is crossing into different universes, then how do those Infinity Stones still work? And then
I see. Because they're supposed to be the sort of like the leading part of what created the universe, right?
Right. Well, actually, it's not necessarily that. I think it has something to do with it. My understanding in the comics is that anytime a universe is born, those are the 6 pillars of creation that get distilled into the physical crystal.
Yeah.
That's what I understand it. But in the comics, the rule is like you can't move between universes with them. They'll lose their power. Kind of like how in the TVA, how it exists outside in a pocket dimension.
Yeah,
outside of our MCU, they're just ingots. They're just lighty orbs, whatever. So I'm like, how does that work with this Vision? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, is he hopping universes or is he just playing with a timeline? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because how big of a multiversal threat is that going to be if we're going to cross over all these universes? What ifs? You know what I mean? So it's just interesting. I don't know how they're going to explain that.
Yeah, I'd wonder too.
Yeah. Well,
because I do believe the next episode is supposed to be
about
what
that,
if,
right?
Yeah, what if Ultron won?
There you go.
So
that might be the same exact one as this last episode, or it could be a different one.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure.
Maybe. Yeah, my guess was that would be the one from
this.
This episode's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, it would make more sense to time in, so it's probably about that.
Yeah, and that would be like the end of the story. He would come over to Thor.
Wow, I wonder if they're gonna clean that up there, or if it's gonna. They might, because season they'll introduce a different big bad or something.
Yeah,
but I wonder how much of that carry over. I guess we'll find out. Big Apple. But yeah, pretty fun episode. Pretty light. You know, not too much happening. You know, just one of those ones you watch for fun.
Yeah, I would have liked it to have, again, like we said, higher stakes, like a little more serious with how they handled the outcome of his mother coming.
Right, because I mean the whole implication of the world changes. Like that first contact with aliens in this universe.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's kind of a big deal.
And they're also like disrupting civilization. Like they're
peace has been disrupted.
Yeah, destroying
monuments
and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, there's gonna be some backlash. You would think.
Right.
But everything moves so fast now.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. But yeah, I agree. It would have been nice to see a little more backlash, or at the very least, like it would be cool if there was a little bit more going on to Thor. Like maybe he was like an unintentional villain. Like, I'm gonna party and that's that. And like maybe
like
he indirectly
a little bit of depression or something.
Something, right? Just
like
a little more behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something. I don't know. But I don't write these things. We just watch them, Big A.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our thoughts on Marvel's What If episode 7. Last one just dropped, so I'm gonna probably go downstairs and watch that right now, Big Apple. But for Media Munchers, I'm Mathian.
And I'm Adrian.
Catch you next time.